I know you, but
I just
behind those foster grants, I'm not sure.
You know Charlene Band, right?
Yeah.
So I finally connected that I know her well, and I know her husband well, but in totally different circles.
Know her husband at all.
Right. Sorry. The trip.
The trip.
Yeah.
Florida trip. Things are starting to trickle out information.
Yes, they are.
Okay. And there'll be a full thing tomorrow.
Yes, I saw.
We have the meeting. We won't be able to.
I can't go.
Yeah, neither can I. Hi, Jen.
But at least it means the information is known,
It's
because
starting-
if they're
yeah.
presenting, they.
And I also happened to call the resort to ask a question.
Yeah.
And she said, oh, yeah, the guy, it was funny. And then the woman was even funnier. She's like, oh, yes, we're expecting there's going to be thousands of children.
Yes.
I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
I'll let you get settled.
They'll have
I'm
fun.
going to ambush you
I
with a
think.
question.
But Marina finally found out who she's
There's no
rooming
reason
with.
why you should really remember this or know this. But
Really?
if by some chance.
Fast passes and.
No, not so.
What year
So
it
she
was,
didn't. She doesn't really have many
retired
friends in the band,
Sean.
so she
Okay.
said whatever
Didn't have a
room they put me in is
personnel
fine.
director,
So
and
she found out
then-
who she's rooming with, but she has
I
one
remember
sort of
interviewing
friend,
them,
but she
but-
was too embarrassed to
Yeah,
try to room with her.
because
So
it
there,
was-
she's gonna fast pass with some other people, but they haven't done it yet, and I don't know.
Oh.
First year, I
Yeah,
think.
they've.
It might have been.
So this whole
She
thing
was
is just
spot
like
on.
Elizabeth
Oh, yeah?
keeps like every day it's a
John,
different.
start your
She has a
first
spreadsheet.
year? Did you two come
Of-
on together?
Of
Did, but he
of
started
like fast
later.
passes or
So
Of
like
what
I
they're doing
started
for
July
fast passes,
1st,
what
and I
they're
think he
doing
came
for,
at like either the end of August or beginning of September.
Okay.
What they're doing for
So what
It's like
year?
6 years ago.
6 years ago?
Um,
Okay.
meals.
Marina's gonna go
Thank
where
you.
with. She's got this one friend who's got a couple other friends there. She said, "I'll do whatever you guys are doing.
have a good
I don't.
weekend?
I don't care."
I did.
I mean, it's not like
Did
she's
you?
never been to Disney World. The girls.
Well, and that's and Izzy was just
Did a
there, so
little-
they made Izzy like their little
Yeah.
leader.
Fun.
I saw you coming in.
And you can
You
Amazon
saw me
them.
coming in. I was early. I'm just running around.
Yeah,
Too many
it's all
things to get done this
same
week.
ballot. One page.
If I can make
be a common
If I can make
On
it
the
to
first
Friday,
page,
because
so
I
you
have too
don't
many
have to
things
worry
to do
about people not
outside
having it at the
of
back.
school committee stuff. I'm trying to help
Poor
my
Zena
mother.
just moved this weekend.
Yeah.
Oh,
Talk
Yes.
about busy.
that's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're all busy this week.
I'm ready for March to be over.
Yeah.
The worst month.
I don't know. I'm
We're all
ready for June
like-
to be over. And it start like July 1 would be nice.
Right. It's just
It was so nice to see some
and you're ready
bare
for winter
ground
to be
this
over.
weekend.
I know. It's like, oh, there's grass under
Then I
there.
take my dog for a walk and my feet sink like a foot into.
Yeah.
I thought I might have been stuck there permanently.
My favorite part is hearing
The birds are
again.
back. The geese are back.
The ground is bare, and I found all this roof shingles and siding shingles that are on the ground that I now have to get someone to fix from that windstorm.
I found all the dog
How
poop.
about you?
He's
going downhill.
It hasn't even started.
You think of this as a hood.
Susan,
Like
don't
that.
report what you found, unfortunately.
And I said that to him. I said that's why it is a joke.
Everybody,
Joke. with
If you were only home in the dark like I am.
I said,
waiting on Frida, right?
you were the candidate.
Frida is not here today,
Sorry.
so
You actually thought it was.
I'll take minutes.
Okay,
You note taker?
Yeah.
so shall we begin? WinCam, you want to give us a countdown, please? I'm ready in 5, 4, 3, 2. Thank you, David. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to a school committee meeting, Winchester School Committee meeting of March 18th. It is 10:03 in the morning. We have a very brief agenda today. I'll run through public comment for anyone who's here and wishes to address the committee. We have one action item before us today, which is to vote on the submission of statements of interest for the Lynch and Morocco Elementary Schools to the Massachusetts School Building Authority's core replacement program, and this is time sensitive given that window is closing. We have a chair report, superintendent report, unless we want to hold that for tomorrow. Judy, we can review quickly next meeting dates and then we will adjourn. Having said that, Karen is with us. Any public comment? Here to watch. Thank you. We're glad you're here. So let's move on then to the main event, which is to vote on the submission of statements of interest. Judy, would you or Ellen like to sort of share with the committee what you guys have been up to since we last discussed this? I know we discussed it on January 22nd. We discussed it again in February, and you're basically been updating the SOIs that were submitted for the two schools last year.
Right. So just to make sure that everyone has the context, we have submitted statements of interest for renovation or replacement of Lynch and Morocco schools to the Massachusetts School Building Authority. In the last submission cycle, we came fairly close to being funded, and it's lack of sufficient funding on the state level that made it not possible for them to partner with us on either project, but they strongly encouraged us to resubmit our statements of interest. Depending on the pool this year, we may be more fortunate this year. Both schools continue to have major need for renovation or replacement. In Lynch's case in particular, due to significant overcrowding, the requirement that we split our preschool because we had insufficient space for it at Lynch, the growing population of student-age children in the Lynch and Morocco portion of town based on the multifamily homes there, and the lack of sufficient resources on the town side to address deferred maintenance and upgrades to the schools that are sort of major systems and windows, and the fact that both schools are not set up to support 21st century teaching and learning. All of those things in combination lead us to the conclusion that both schools need to be replaced. The statements of interest that we've submitted were well received by the MSBA. We'd just like to make minor updates to them and resubmit them. The process calls for vote by both the school committee and the select board. The select board is meeting this evening and intends to take this up as an agenda item. And that's why we have this one agenda item for our meeting today, to be able to communicate with the select board what your decision was before they take their vote. Ellen, is there anything I've forgotten?
No, we're just updating items including enrollment, the capital needs, the deferred maintenance pieces, working with Pete Lawson from DPW, provided me with the updated lists out of his VFA database, so just needing to take some time to kind of take all those pieces apart and put them to where we need to and recalculate some numbers.
And I would just say it's worth kind of reminding, I know the committee knows this, but for anybody watching or reporting on it, that the Lynch School has some, I think it's about $30 million in level 1 and level 2 needs, so urgent and critical needs. It is the, as you've heard from Roger in our public presentations, it's the sort of largest collection of our major deferred maintenance costs. Again, another example of why the override is so important, so we can keep up with the needs of our buildings. And that would even be the case for a core replacement project. I remind people that the first step, of course, is a feasibility study. So on a project of this nature, we would expect the gross cost of a feasibility study to be somewhere between $1 million and $1.5 million, if prior projects are any indication. And using kind of our historical reimbursement rate, we might be expected to be able to find between $600,000 or $1 million to participate. So we would typically look to the stabilization funds to support that, and if the resources aren't there, it's hard to get out of the blocks. So thank you for the update. Any questions for Ellen or for Judy?
I have a couple of quick questions. Refresh my memory. I'm pretty sure this is like an online form, so
Yes.
you have to get all of this detail into there
Yes.
and hit send.
Yes.
Yeah. And then on the feasibility study, should we, help us get that to that stage, the MSBA would help pay for that as well, or would we be paying the whole amount?
It is subject. It's a reimbursed item. I have to confess, it is something that ultimately gets articulated in the broader project funding agreement should the project move forward. But there has been reimbursement in the past, which is very similar to, if not identical to, the ultimate rate on the full project.
Because you mentioned two numbers, and it was like, okay, so like if the
right.
full
So-
cost of the feasibility study is like upwards of $1 million and upwards, but with some MSBA participation or reimbursement, it would be somewhat less.
So in other words, if a feasibility study was $1 million and there was 40% reimbursement, we'd be
same
on the
split.
hook for 600. But the feasibility study could be greater, just depending upon the nature of the project and what the issues are.
And then the third thing was, I remember Judy mentioning that the Lynch roof is showing some problems, and we replaced that like in 2011, but that's another reason that we need to get moving on this renovation.
Yes, so recently, and we'll put this in the statement of interest, we've recently had a large number of leaks at Lynch, which the roof manufacturer, the installer, have been working really pretty diligently to figure it out. Gail Associates has been out. It's a combination of things. It's roof drains, it's leaks around things that are on the roof. And it was a seam issue somewhere, and so it's not just one cause, it's several different causes, but it is a concern, particularly in the season where we're having a lot of melting, that that there were leaks that were in occupied spaces, and it has an impact on the educational program. And then after the leak has been addressed, then we've got sort of interior air quality, mold concerns and so forth that happen anytime you have a leak, particularly in an old building. And so it is a growing concern. I'm not sure how much longer the warranty is in place on that roof. And if it's a 10-year warranty, it's probably coming up soon.
Yep.
So we have a small window to be sure that that gets addressed if it gets addressed under the warranty. And then any further information after Gail came out last week, Ellen, on the...
I have not seen anything additionally. I do have some time scheduled to talk to Pete Lawson today about several outstanding issues, so I will follow up.
So we'll follow up just an informational email just to let you know where we stand on that. It seems to have surfaced, in the last 5 years, it's been not a concern, but this year it has been a significant concern to me.
Okay.
So.
Just for the record, that was another partnership with the MSBA.
Yeah, I remember.
And
Vaguely.
they were able to partner with us because it was a capital project we were already preparing to move forward on. So we had construction documents ready. I know my sense is that they contributed something, again, on the order of 40% or something. So, we always appreciate the money. We'd just like the roof not to leak.
That would be good.
Yeah. All right, thank you. Any other questions or comments for Ellen or Judy?
So I have a comment. I know I had brought up the idea of having a community conversation about a single building for Lynch and Morocco that would happen faster than doing Lynch and Morocco separately, and overall would be a more cost-effective model. I have spoken to several staff members, community members, and that interest in neighborhood schools is still very strong. And so for the time being, I think it is a wise decision to move forward with these two SOIs separately. And depending on what happens and what gets accepted versus not, then I would like us to revisit that issue. But for now, I support how we're going about it.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I think that if we should be fortunate enough to be selected and we move forward, I think one of the things we would have to be talking about in really the early going of the feasibility study is, so what are we trying to do and why, and what are the solutions and what are the options? And just like a combination school was one of the things we studied in the master plan, I think that's importantly sort of part of the conversation, whether it's to figure out if that's a direction, in fact, we want to go, or just to validate the direction that we think we're headed already. It's a good conversation to have, so I appreciate you saying that. I think you have in your packets a proposed motion that is, Ellen, this is consistent with the last 2 years?
Yes.
Right? And I think somebody mentioned earlier the way the SOIs have been prepared, there is an indication if you have multiple SOIs, is this your priority, and you've prepared it that way. So the Lynch SOI is already prepared as a priority for the reasons that Judy has described. Is that right?
Right.
Okay.
So just for clarity, I'm going to propose a motion that we vote to prioritize Lynch in the SOI submission.
If you vote the vote, it already says it in the
already
vote
says it?
itself.
Yeah.
I guess I didn't get that far. Wow. Okay.
So do we just read that paragraph as stated, or?
Yes.
I move to resolve that having convened in an open meeting on March 18, 2019, prior to the closing date, the School Committee of Winchester, in accordance with its charter, bylaws, and ordinances, has voted to authorize the superintendent to submit to the Massachusetts School Building Authority the statement of interest form for the Lynch Elementary School located at 10 Brentwood Road, Winchester, Massachusetts 01890, which describes and explains the following deficiencies in the priority categories for which an application may be submitted to the Massachusetts School Building Authority in the future. Priority categories 2, 4, and 5 for the elimination of existing overcrowding, for the prevention of expected overcrowding as a result of increased enrollment, and for the replacement, renovation, or modernization of school facility systems, and hereby further specifically acknowledges that by submitting this statement of interest form, the Massachusetts School Building Authority in no way guarantees the acceptance or the approval of an application, the awarding of a grant, or any other funding commitment from the Massachusetts School Building Authority, or commits the city, town, regional school, the town school district to filing an application for funding with the Massachusetts School Building Authority.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Would you like to do that again?
I was going to say, or I can do this one and give you a break.
I was going to let the Morocco parents, but go
Yeah.
ahead.
Resolved, having convened in an open meeting on March 18th, 2019, prior to the closing date, the School Committee of Winchester, in accordance with its charter, bylaws, and ordinances, has voted to authorize the superintendent to submit to the Massachusetts School Building Authority the statement of interest form for the Morocco School located at 33 Bates Road, Winchester, Massachusetts 01890, which describes and explains the following deficiencies in the priority categories for which an application may be submitted to the Massachusetts School Building Authority in the future. Priority categories 2, 4, 5 for the elimination of existing overcrowding, for the prevention of expected overcrowding as the result of increased enrollment, and for the replacement, renovation, or modernization of the school facility systems, and hereby further specifically acknowledges that submitting this statement of interest form, the Massachusetts School Building Authority in no way guarantees the acceptance or approval of an application, the awarding of a grant, or other funding commitment from the Massachusetts School Building Authority, or commits the City Town Regional School District to filing an application for funding with the Massachusetts School Building Authority.
Second.
Further discussion?
Just one point of clarification. So the reasons for submitting these applications for Lynch and Morocco are embedded in the vote. The which school is a priority is a checklist on the form itself, as opposed to.
Okay, I didn't
Yeah.
hear.
You didn't
that
hear them
in
say
there
that in
either.
here. The MSBA vote language is given to us by the MSBA. So this is
I
the
was making
specific
that-
language. Yeah.
Yeah. So by voting these,
By
these
voting
as
these-
stated, we're prioritizing Lynch because it's prioritized on the application that we're submitting.
I
Yeah.
think we still have to do a separate.
So if you wanted,
If there's an easy housekeeping item we can tackle,
yeah.
if
Did we vote on this yet?
we've not.
Oh,
I'm saying
we
No,
had a
that's why I jumped
second.
in.
if we are ready to vote. So
why I jumped
thank you
in.
for that.
Sorry, sorry, I didn't mean to imply that.
That's good. All in favor?
It's embedded.
Aye. Now, let me just say procedurally, so this would be our third submission for these two schools. When we first took this up a couple of years ago, there was lengthy discussion about which school should be the priority. It was really the first time the committee had an opportunity to discuss it. So that was the kind of the nature of the needs of both buildings, the condition, for instance, of windows or building systems, but the amount of windows and what they cost and so forth. And I think that since then, the committee there's been some care and feeding, if you will, to the understanding of how these two sort of buildings are different to one another. So last year when we submitted, there was much less discussion on the issue of priority. I mean, it was understood. I will say for the record, last year, Mr. Nixon did make a motion that when I was not chair, that the school committee prioritize the statement of interest for the Lynch Elementary School as is required by the MSBA when multiple SOIs are submitted for the core replacement program. Michelle seconded the motion and it was voted. That was actually expressed in the SOIs themselves. So I don't think it would be inappropriate if somebody wanted to make a similar motion today, just to be absolutely clear.
I did. Is that
Right.
sufficient?
Now I second it. How's that?
I guess it was tabled and now, I don't know, so.
I think it's a new vote. It's a new, you didn't make a motion.
I
You
don't
just
think you made a
asked-
motion.
Asked whether we should.
All right, I move that we prioritize Lynch in the SOIs that we authorized the district to file and do everything else in accordance with the MSBA requirements.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. I think that does reinforce.
Well, it's confusing because it talks about priorities, but
Yeah.
those are the priorities sort of within the MSBA regulations for
Exactly.
why you
Right.
need the
Yes.
project, so, yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much. Just two quick notes under chair report. I think I've shared with you all, we have an informational website. And Judy, maybe we can find a way to get that up on the district website as well.
Yeah, I will put it up today.
This is separate. I know there's a campaign initiative out there. This is not related to that. It's a Google site with a really kind of long, clumsy URL. So you find it by just going to tinyurl.com/decision01890. I think some PFAs were forwarding that. I think
I was
Susan
gonna
Susan sent
acknowledge.
somebody
Susan
sent
sent it.
something to PISC. I appreciate
Yeah,
that.
in the newsletter.
So this is really informational, right? It's about what do you get with yes, what do you get with no, why is this even being proposed, what are the consequences? So Susan, I want to give her a lot of credit, has done an amazing job on the FAQ page. Some very kind of high-level questions, even like what the heck is a Prop 2.5 override and where did that come from? But much more detailed questions that, former FinCom members would be asking. So if as you go through the website or you're hearing things from the community, you're hearing questions you feel like we haven't been talking about and it would be helpful to put out there, please speak up, let me know, let Susan know, because, we can keep working on it.
Thank you to both of you.
So,
Yeah,
Thank
yeah,
you.
that was, Chris did a whole lot of work on the front end of it too, on the explanation, so. And it went through many iterations as things moved.
yeah, I was just going to say, you should have
Time,
seen the
so-
website that we had ready 5 months ago. That was great too, but we threw that away.
Always a work in progress.
Yes. So anyway, thank you, Susan, for everything you've done on that. Also, and I will probably put in a plug for this when we next meet as a committee, but Winchester and Duxbury boys hockey were playing last night at the Garden. They were fighting for what would have been their fourth title in the district's, each for the fourth title in the district's history. I actually turned around. I was going down there with my kids when I realized that the BC High game was going into third overtime, and it would actually go into the fourth overtime. And some very patient, loyal fans were there late into the night before it started. It was a tie game, 1-1, well into the third period, when Winchester fell behind and lost 3-1 on an empty netter. But they played really hard, and so many people in this community were, just very excited of their success and proud of them for taking it that far. So I'm sure it was a great experience for all those guys and their families. So congratulations to them for, taking it that far. So that's it. It was a website and a comment about hockey. Do you have anything you want to talk
Chris,
about?
books and budgets?
Oh, yeah, I'll talk.
Okay.
So as we ramp up to the town election next week on Tuesday, just want to remind everybody that is an election that includes several town offices and also the vote related to authorizing an increase in the tax levy to support our operating budget. So those are important decisions for all voters to consider, both elected officials and the ballot question. There will be several opportunities this week to learn more about the state of the school department budget and issues related to that. Today, Lisa Wong, the new town manager, and I will be doing a podcast with WinCam, and so that should be fun this afternoon, and I hope that'll be broadcast so you can listen or watch that. There are also two other events tonight at which I and maybe some town folks, maybe select board members, will be talking about the challenges of funding our town and school budgets. There's one at Kids Corner. There's one with Ambrose parents tonight. On Wednesday night, there is a Books and Budgets presentation co-sponsored by WIFI and PISC at 7 p.m. in the high school auditorium. On Thursday night, there's a kindergarten orientation sponsored by Parent to Parent, and there'll be a little bit of information there, in addition to kindergarten information, if people would like to know. I have a superintendent's chat scheduled tomorrow night at 6 p.m. here at Parkhurst. If anybody would like to come and ask questions about budget, curriculum, or anything else related to the schools before the 7 p.m. school committee meeting. Also tonight, if you're not interested in budgets or voting or anything related to those topics, but you are interested in the arts, it is Night of the Arts at Winchester High School. Stop in, I think it starts at 6.
6 to 9.
And there will be presentations by both students and faculty members, music presentations, visual art presentations, and other. And it is sponsored by the Student Council, I believe. And so there's a little entry fee to help support their efforts as well. So lots and lots going on this week. And we will all be very tired by Friday, but we have a lot to celebrate in our terrific district. And so I look forward to seeing some of you at some of those events.
So you remind me of two things, if I can circle back to. So I also just want to thank everybody on the Finance Committee who a number of people are making themselves available for many of these community events. All the while, the Finance Committee has actually a lot of work to do and are actually doing twice as much work because they have two budgets. The Finance Committee has a meeting tonight, so they're kind of being in 2 or 3 places at once, and I really appreciate that. A quick comment also at the website. There is a growth page that if you haven't seen this, I would call your attention to it. Judy had recently shared, so Susan and I attended a PISC meeting last week with Judy, and she was sharing kind of what the latest census numbers show in the way of kindergarten, and I'm sure you'll talk about this in an upcoming school committee meeting, but we have 378 age-eligible kindergartners on the census. The administration has been reaching out to families to understand, are your kids coming or not? And I believe the latest, I think you said was 20, there's at least 20 kids. They're saying, no, we don't
Right.
plan on bringing them
Not
in
yet.
the fall. So that's pretty significant because you start backing those numbers out and we may be well above 330. So I want to just make everybody aware that on the growth page, we've captured this, a particular snippet that points out for FY17, we had 312 enrolled kindergartners. And so for FY20, based on the latest information, we're projecting a little under 360, just where we are today. So that's a 15% increase over a 3-year period if those numbers hold. And I think that's important for us to be aware of, given some of the certainly there's been a lot of growth at the high school. I know Judy's done a great job describing that. But I'm picking up on some sort of growing sense in the community that maybe we're sort of contracting at the elementary level. It's certainly fair to say that as goes kindergarten enrollment, so goes K-5 enrollment eventually, right?
Right.
Kindergarten is sort of the tip of the spear. So if those class sizes keep going down, there's consequences for that. But on the other hand, Judy has always said kindergarten is always really very hard to predict. And certainly it's not in anybody's interest to make projections based on one data point. So it's pretty interesting. We have seen sort of a somewhat modest reduction over a brief period of time, but early indications are that number may be coming back up. So it's just an important thing to keep in mind, and feel free to share that with folks if you feel it would be helpful. So thank you very much. Next meeting dates. Yes,
I
Brian,
mean,
please.
Two really quick updates.
Happy, yeah.
One really, really quick, which was the Night of the Arts. I want to give a second plug because it happens to be that my daughter's business is baking something that's going to be auctioned off to raise money for. So there'll be edible art there tonight as well.
Edible
But-
art, love it.
A business in which you have no stake, so
I
there's
have no
no
financial
there's no
stake.
OCPF violation. in
Not
you
to mention
making
that the money is all
announcement.
being going to the cause of
Arts.
the arts. The second is that as a member of the Capital Planning Committee, I attended a kickoff for the ADA Transition Plan and Access Audit, which is being started. We're reworking the plan after 8 years. WT Group out of Chicago, Illinois, spent last week doing an audit of many, many, many buildings in town. I believe they got to all the schools except for perhaps the high school.
Dennis was very offended at that.
Brand new
The-
building.
the-
Well, that's what I said. I
that-
said, Dennis, you better not have
They-
any ADA compliance.
They are going to, so they're going to be back in May. There's just so many buildings in town. They're going to be back in May to look at outdoor spaces as well, because with, at least last week, there was still some snow on the ground. There's less now, obviously. I believe they're going to come to the high school when they come back. They are going to follow-up meetings, and then their draft presentation, and then we're going to have essentially a new transition plan, and how long that will last. A lot of the details we don't know yet, but if any of you have any things you want to make sure are addressed, you can reach out to me. I'm ostensibly on that, the subcommittee that's looking at that as a member of the capital planning, but obviously I'm on the capital planning as a member of the school committee. So I just want to shout that out. And I saw, once I saw them at the meeting, I then saw them everywhere I went in town. Everywhere I went, I would see them walking around outside buildings, whatnot. So they're looking at soup to nuts of all the buildings in town.
So I do have one question.
Yes.
Do you know if they have a cost estimator that's a part of their team that is physically here in town looking at these areas with them?
That is a good question. I do not know.
So
They are no longer here in town.
Sure.
They were here last week.
Well, I'm asking because the prior consultant we
Yes.
hired for the transition
We
plan,
discussed this.
right, did not have, and it's important to make the note, they didn't have a cost estimator on their team. They subbed out the cost estimation services, and so they would describe in no more than 2 or 3 sentences what the issue was to a cost estimator who never set foot in Winchester.
Yeah.
You can imagine that the actual estimates that were then attributed to those various citations were wildly off from actual costs. So that was a hurdle right out of the gates. Okay, it's great. Thank you very much for that, Brian. So if there are no other questions or comments, let me just move on to next meeting dates. So tomorrow night at 7, we have April 9th at 9:30. Did somebody have a question about that? Is that good for everybody? April 9th
We
at
won't
9:30?
know until after the election.
I think, oh no, I think I got a nod at the
Yeah.
last meeting. That was April 9th at 9:30, we think is okay. Thank you. April 23rd, currently scheduled as an evening meeting. So, thank you very much.
you.
My only request is don't anybody bug Ellen for the next couple of days, because she's still working hard on the SOIs, correct?
And the 14 other things I have on our list.
All right, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you very much. Thank you, Ellen, very much. Thank you, Judy.
Sure.